Hi Year 2, for our handwriting first of all today, I would like you to have a go at writing the word smile. You might need to ask somebody at home for help with the spelling of that word, but try your best and have a go at sounding it out. I'd like you to write it 3 times. The word is smile, smile. Remember, all of your letters should sit between lines 2 and 3, apart from the letter L that should touch the top red line. Let's warm our writing brains up. What is wrong with my sentence? My sentence is, "Why am I shrinking?" said Mrs Twit. There's something missing from the start of the sentence. There's a question in there somewhere, and there's somebody's name. There's a proper noun that's missing some capital letters. In your green book or on a piece of paper, can you fix that for me, please? Okay, for our writing today, we are going to need to read this chapter, Mrs Twit Has the Shrinks. Listen carefully. As soon as Mrs Twit sat down, Mr Twit pointed at her and shouted, "There you are! You're sitting in your old chair and you've shrunk so much your feet aren't even touching the ground." Mrs Twit looked down at her feet and by golly the man was right. Her feet were not touching the ground. Mr Twit, you see, had been just as clever with the chair as he had been with the walking stick. Every night when he'd gone downstairs and stuck a little bit extra onto the stick, he'd done the same to the four legs of Mrs Twit's chair. "Just look at you sitting there in your same old chair," he cried, "and you've shrunk so much your feet are dangling in the air." Mrs Twit went white with fear. "You've got the shrinks," cried Mr Twit, pointing his finger at her like a pistol. "You've got them badly. You've got the most terrible case of shrinks I've ever seen." Mrs Twit became so frightened she began to dribble. But Mr Twit, still remembering the worms in his spaghetti, didn't feel sorry for her at all. "Suppose you know what happens to you when you get the shrinks," he said. "What?" gasped Mrs Twit. "What happens?" "Your head shrinks into your neck, and your neck shrinks into your body, and your body shrinks into your legs, and your legs shrink into your feet. And in the end, there's nothing left except a pair of shoes." Okay, boys and girls, before you move on to the rest of this video, I would pause it and I would find the video of me, Miss Buckley, doing some writing on the whiteboard because I explain there your writing job for today. You are going to pretend that you are Mrs Twit's doctor and you are going to write a letter to her to explain what's wrong with her, to tell her that she has the shrinks. Now, remember, Mr Twit is tricking Mrs Twit, so we need to play along with that and we need to be the doctor telling her that she has the shrinks and she's not got long left, maybe 10 or 11 days. But head over to the video where I show you mine and then you have a go at writing yours. When you've done it, come back to this one and I'll read you the next chapter. Happy writing! I hope you've had a good chance to write your letter as the doctor, boys and girls. Here is the next chapter. Mr. Twit led Mrs. Twit outdoors where he had everything ready for the great stretching. He had 100 balloons and lots of string. He had a gas cylinder for filling the balloons, and he'd fixed an iron ring into the ground. "Stand here," he said, pointing to the iron ring. He then tied Mrs. Twit's ankles to it. When that was done, he began filling the balloons with gas. Each balloon was on a long string, and when it was filled with gas, it pulled on its string, trying to go up and up. Mr. Twit tied the ends of the strings to the top half of Mrs. Twit's body, some round her neck, some under her arms, some to her wrists, and even some to her hair. Soon there were 50 coloured balloons floating in the air above Mrs. Twit's head. "Can you feel them stretching you?" asked Mr. Twit. I can," cried Mrs. Twit. "They're stretching me like mad." He put on another 10 balloons, and the upward pull became very strong. Mrs. Twit was quite helpless now, with her feet tied to the ground and her arms pulled upwards by the balloons. She was unable to move. She was a prisoner, and Mr. Twit had intended to go away and leave her like that for a couple of days and nights to teach her a lesson. In fact, he was just about to leave when Mrs. Twit opened her big mouth and said something silly. "Are you